So here we have our next unit, or our next lesson in Unit 8, which is on comparing fractions. So we have another example right here at the top. And if you remember, when we compare fractions, we need to have the denominators, those bottom numbers, be the same number. So what do we need to do? Well, let's think. We need to have it so that 4 is the same as 10. So we need to make an equivalent fraction. So I need to find my least common denominator. So I make my list of 4s. 4 times 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5. And then I make my list of 10s. 10, 20. And look, they're the same. So that means 3/4 is going to become what? 3/4 is going to become, oops, wrong direction. 3/4 is going to become over 20. This is times 5. So this is times 5. So 15/20 is equal to 3/4. 6/10 is going to become what? Well, we have 6 over 10, and that's going to become a 20. So then that's times 2, which gives us 12. So, what do we need to do? Well, now we see that what? We see that 15/20 is larger. So we can do this part right here and use fraction strips as well, but this is the method that we're going to be focusing on. Okay, so now number 1, it says Mary says that 1/8 is greater. So this is what Mary's saying. 1/8 is greater than 1/4 because 8 is bigger than 4. Is she correct? Well, think about it. If I draw a picture first, here's 1/8. She's saying this tiny piece right here is bigger than if we break it up into 4s. And just by looking at it, we know that it's wrong. So how can we say that she's wrong? Well, let's start out with this part. No. Oops, and then no. What was my problem? No, Mary's incorrect. I couldn't remember her name. Mary is incorrect. And now I need to do that explain part. So we have if 2 wholes are the same size, when 2 fractions have the same numerator, the fraction with the bigger denominator is the smaller one. And why is that? Well, here we have 8 pieces, and so we're breaking up into 8 pieces, which means that what? It means each piece is smaller. So now let's head on to number 2. It says write greater than, less than, or equal to. Well, here we need our equivalent fractions, so they need to have that same bottom number. So I'm going to make my list of 4, so that's 4, 8. Ooh, that was quick and easy. So this is times 2 times 2. So this is going to be 6/8, and 6/8 is equivalent to 6/8. So now let's head to this next one. This one is, oh, look, we did this one right up here when we made our list. So my least common denominator is what? Is 20. So this is going to be 20 and 20. This was times 5. So this will be times 5. And this was times 2. So this is going to be times 2. So 5/20 is greater than 2/20. Our next one, we make my list of common denominators, or my list of multiples. So we have 5, 10, and then 10 for the 10s. And look, this is going to be then equivalent to 10. So this was times 2 times 2. And then this one stays the same since it already has 10. So 6 is bigger than 5, so 6/10 is bigger than 5/10. My next one, we have 1/2. So I'm going to make my list of, jumping up. I'm going to make my list of multiples. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then my list of 5s is 5, 10. So I see 10's my common denominator. So this was times 5, this was times 5, so this is going to be 5/10. This is going to be times 2, 8/10. Which one is bigger? Well, 8/10 is bigger. So now let's head off to number 6. It says find equivalent fractions to compare. So here we have 7/8. So we can use the number line if we want to, 7/8. And then 3/4 is equal to what? Well, this is going to be over 8. And I know that because they kind of give us that number line. I also know 4 times 2 is equal to 8. So that's times 2, 6/8. So which one's bigger? Well, 7/8 is bigger because it's further along on that number line. Here we go over here, 10/12 I see to start out with, and 5/6. Well, since I have that number line they're giving to us, I can infer that's probably going to be 12 is my least common denominator. So that would be times 2, which gives us 10. Which one's bigger? Well, they're the same, so they're equivalent. So remember, I have these two terms. I have my least common multiple, which is when I make my multiple list, like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 5, 10, my least common multiple is the number that's the smallest that repeats. So now let's head over here. Well, this one is going to be a little tricky because why? Well, we don't know our 12's facts very well. So let's start with 12, and then we'll see if a 10 pops up. So that's 12, 24, 36, 48, 50. So it's times 5. So I'm going to write that over on here. This was times 5, gives us 60. This is times 5, gives us 55. And I know that this is just going to be times 6. So that's going to be 42 over 60. So which one's bigger? Well, 55 is larger than 42. So 55/60 is going to be my larger one. Here, my denominators are the same, so I don't have to find the least common multiple. So I just know 7 is bigger than 4. Over here, we know already our 12's facts because we saw them right here that we just made. And what do we notice? Oops, that was supposed to be a 60 is the first thing we notice. But we also notice what? This is my first one that's going to be divisible by 5, which means over here, this is going to be my first one that's also divisible by 5, or multiple of 5. So now we have a times 12, since that's 5 times 12, which gives us 60. And this was times 5. So what? 12 times 4 is 48. 5 times 5 is 25. Which one is larger? We see 48 is larger. If you can do your benchmark fractions well, then we actually don't even need to do this part. So now, what do we see? Well, 6, 12. Oops, I put that as 6/12. So that's going to be a times 2. So that's 12. This is times 2 is 4. Which one is larger? 4/12 is larger. Over here, we already know this is probably going to be 60 since that's what it was above. So it's nice when we can recycle ours and not have to make the least common multiples again. So this is going to be 10/60, and this was multiplied by 6, so that's going to be what? That's going to be 12/60. So which one's larger? This one is larger by 2/60. And then, I skipped one. There it went. Okay, this one. Let's make our list of 8s, our multiples of 8. So we have 8, 16, 24, 32, and 40. Remember, we always start with 5 and see if we any repeat. And then I see this 40 is probably going to be the same as this 10 over here for our common multiples. So this is going to be over 40, which means this was times 4. So this is 32. And this one was times 5, which is going to be 40/30. So which one's larger? Well, 32 is bigger than 30, so 32/40 is larger than 30/40. Okay, this one right here, we'll make my list of our common multiples. So we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. This one we have 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. I don't see it repeating, so that means I have to keep going. So now I would do 30, and look, there they are. So this is going to be times 6. This is times 5. So we have 18/30. And over here, oops, that's a times 6. We have what? We have, oops, I was jumping ahead. This is an 18/30. This is 15/30. And this one is the 18/30. So which one's larger? 18 is larger than 15. And our last one. We just did this, so we know the common denominator, the least common multiple, is going to be what? It's going to be 30. So our least common multiple is 30, so this was times 5, this was times 6, so this is 25, and this is 24. So which one is larger? This one is larger by a hair. So now let's head on to our harder word problems. It says Felicia drew the pictures at the right to show 3/8 is greater than 3/4. What is Felicia's mistake? Well, remember, when we're comparing wholes, they have to be the same size. And this whole right here is much bigger than this whole. So there's something going on there. She did not represent the fractions, so let me zoom on in. Using the same size rectangles. Okay, let's head off to number 17 now. Jack said you compare two fractions with the same denominator by only comparing the numerators. Is he correct? So what's Jack saying? He's saying if we have two fractions, a mystery one and a mystery one, if they have the same denominator, so let's just pick 5, we can compare them by just looking at the numerators. Is that correct? Yeah, it is. Because remember, that's the whole purpose of what we're doing. If this was 3 and this was 2, we could easily compare them. So how do we put this in a sentence? Probably like this. If two fractions have the same denominator, then the fraction with the greater numerator will be the larger fraction. Now off to number 18. Tina completed 2/3 of her homework. George completed 7/8 of his homework. Tina and George have the same amount of homework. Who created a fraction of home? Who completed a greater fraction of homework? So we have to compare 2/3 and 7/8. So again, we make our list of multiples. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. And this would be 8, 16, 24, 32, 40. I don't see any that repeat, so I need to keep going. So we have 15. Then we would have 18, 21, 24. And there's our repeating one, 24. So this is going to be what? Times 3 times 3. So this is 21 24s. And this was times 8 times 8. So that's 16 24s. So which one is bigger? Well, 21 24s is larger than 16 24s. Number 19. If 3 times 2 is equal to 68, then what does, if 34 times 2 equals 68, then what does 34 times 20 equals? Well, remember, all we do when we multiply by zeros is we take the 0 off, we multiply, which they just showed us is 68, and then we add that 0 back on. So our answer is 680. Number 20. What can you conclude about 3/5 and 61/100 if you know that 3/5 is equivalent to 6/10 and 6/10 is equivalent to 60/100? So they're saying, what can we figure out about these two numbers if we know this? We know 3/5 is equal to 60/10 and 60/10 is equal to 61/100 because they just told us that part right here. Well, we can infer that this fraction is equivalent to that fraction. We don't have to do any math because we're just following those steps. We don't have to find those common denominators or those least common multiples because of this property. Now let's head off to 21. We're almost finished. Jackson played a video game for 1/6 of an hour. Haley played a video game for 1/3 of an hour. Who played the video game for a greater amount of time? So let's see. We have to compare 1/6 and 1/3. So let's make our multiples. We start with that smallest one because it might repeat and show up here. So that's 3, 6. Oh, look, it's already there. So that's times 2, times 2. So that's 2/6. And 1/6 is going to stay the same. And so then what do we have? Well, we have 2/6 is larger. So that means 1/3 is the larger one. And my explanation is my math right over here. Now, let's head to 22. 4 fourth grade classes from an elementary school took a trip to the United States Capitol. There were 25 students in each class. At the Capitol, a maximum of 40 students were allowed on a tour at one time. What was the least number of tours needed for all the students to take the tour? So what do you guys think? Well, it's telling us we have 4 classes of 25. So right there, that's 4 times 25, which I think of as quarters, which is $1, which means this is 100. We can only make tours of 40. So that's going to be 40. This will be 80. And that's 2 complete tours, but we can't leave those other kids out, those extra 20. So that means we need another group. So how many tours will we need? We will need 3 tours. And our last one, or our last row. Select all the answers that show a correct comparison. So we have to compare 8 and 6 first. We have to find that least common multiple. So we have 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30. And then for 8s, we have 8, 16, 24. So what's my common multiple? My least common multiple is 24. So this was times 4. This means this is times 4. So we have 12 24s. And then this was times 3. So that means this is times 3. So that's 9 24s. 9 24s is not bigger than 12 24s. So this one is a no-go. Our next one, I'm going to erase our side notes here so it's easier for us to keep track of. Our next one, we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and then we have what? We have 8, 16, 24, 32, and 40. I don't see any of that repeat. And the first one I see that ends in a 0 or a 5 is 40. So I know my least common multiple is going to be 40. So that means this was times 5 times 5. So this is 25 40ths. And this was times 8 times 8, which tells me this is 40 40ths, which means this one is correct because it should be greater than. Our next one, this is going to be 10, and this is going to be 10. So that's times 5 times 5. That's times 2 times 2. And so we have 1/2 is larger than 1/5. 1/5 is less than 1/2. Our next one, I see this is going to be a 30, which means this is a 30. So that's times 3, which is 6. This was times 10. 20 30ths is not smaller than 6 30ths. So that means this is a no-go. And our last one, thankfully the denominators are the same. 1/6 is not bigger than 2/6. So our only answers are these two. And our very last problem, select all the answer choices that show a correct comparison. Well, I know 6 goes into 12, so that's going to be a times 2 times 2. So that's 10 12ths. 10 12ths is bigger than 7 12ths. I see this one is going to be a 10, so that means this is times 5 times 5. 5 tenths is not bigger than 10 tenths, so this one is not true. Our next one, I don't know how many times 6 goes into 10, or what my least common multiple is, so I'm going to make my multiples of 10. So that's 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30. And look, 30 is going to be that smallest one. So that means this is times 5 times 5. So 10 30ths, this was times 3 times 3. 12 30ths is larger than 10 30ths, so this is a true statement. Our next one, we'll switch this to green. We're going to make my list of multiples, so that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 5, 10, 15. So 15 is my least common multiple. So this was times 5. So that's 10. This was times 3 for 3 15ths. So 3 15ths is less than 10 15ths. And our last one, I've done this so many times, I know 3 is going to go into 12. because I multiply it by 4. 8 twelfths is not bigger than 9 twelfths. So there you have it. We have these three.